Hey everyone, it's good to be back again. And I know it's been a while. I haven't done a video for several reasons actually. It's been busy at work. But today I'll be starting a new series of recording, which would be around adversary emulation. What we intend to do is to have videos recorded showing how you can actually get your hands on dirty doing red teaming stuff or emulating threat within your environment. Now, this video will be targeted to just new time starters, as well as even medium to intermediate, as well as advanced users who want to get hands dirty doing red teaming or emulating threat actors in their environment. A quick caveat: some of the tools we'll be using would be most of them will be open source actually, except for maybe the cloud environment where we have to deploy a few things. We can also have this done locally. So if you do not want to incur charges, get on the cloud environment, you can as well have it locally. But in my case, this has really been a project that I've been working on at work. So it makes sense to share part of it. Again, I'm not going to be sharing some in-depth aspect of this, which has to do with the areas where we've built codes to meet our specific target goals. But I'll be glad to give a bit hint and tips around the corner on how to get your hands dirty doing stuff. We'll be leveraging Caldera, which is open source from Python. We'll also be using Vector, open source as well, which will be our planner. We'll also deploy something in Microsoft, which can also be used as a planner. Then we'll be using Power BI dashboard for reports, where we have the automation done. Again, this will be the flow. We expect that with our MIPS integration, which we're going to build and deploy, we can prioritize threat actors. Then we can export that threat actor priority from MIPS to our emulation planner, which will be vector in this case. Then within vector, we can have all the mapping done correctly. Then we can actually have an automation trigger to move those assessments in vector, convert them to Caldera Adversary. Then the automation will be able to verify if there's an agent hooked up to Caldera, trigger to start the operation against that agent based on the newly deployed adversary in Caldera. Now, once that is done, the automation should also be able to extract the report, which will be the brief, and shoot it over to a Power BI dashboard, where we can start doing a bit of benchmark baselining as we advance. Again, this will be several sets of videos. For today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to quickly deploy Caldera, but locally, if you want to do this locally. For local, I'll be using my MacBook. Again, you can have this done on Ubuntu or any of the Linux flavor. I'm not so sure about Windows, but I'm definitely sure it works on the MacBook. Whilst for on the cloud, I've done this on Azure. I've done this on AWS, so it works for any cloud. It's not really the platform specific, so you can have it done on any cloud environment. We'll be leveraging Microsoft today for the deployment because we want to be sure we have everything in there, because we'll be leveraging Sentinel at some point as well to be able to detect more like an inbuilt SIEM where we can actually see metrics of event hitting that particular VM, which we'll be targeting as our agents. Okay, enough with the chat. What we'll do today, we'll deploy Caldera locally, we'll deploy Caldera on the cloud, then I'll stop the recording. And then maybe the next recording, hopefully next week or in 2 weeks' time, I'll be able to deploy Vector locally and as well as on cloud. Then we can have the connectors done where we'll be able to extract assessment from Vector into Caldera Adversary. After that stage, then we can start connecting agents and trying to see how we can trigger automation to run operations on the agents, export the reports, and do a bit of again detection capability measuring. That's the end goal. So you might be wondering why you need this. For most companies, you've got a CM environment. You want to be sure that the rules you got deployed actually are detecting, as well as maybe measures you've got in terms of procedures actually preventing threats within your environment. So it makes sense to actually emulate threats and with the goal of measuring, seeing if what you've built in place is good enough the bad guys. Enough with my ranting. Let's get into the meat. So for Caldera, I've got an easy workflow which I'm going to share at the end of this first video. Again, if you follow this workflow, you should be able to have Caldera the version 5 up and running without hassle. So to start with, we need to install some dependencies, which should be, if you're using Ubuntu, again, you've got sudo apt going on there. But if you're using Mac, in my case, it's basically going to be brew, using brew to install Python 3 and VNV. as well as git and npm. Then I'll be using curl to fetch this and pipe that over to bash. Again, in my case, it's zsh, depending on what bash you're using on your end. Then our source, in my case, will be source zshrc. Then install nvm. Once I have nvm installed, then I can clone Caldera. I will skip this part because I've already done this. I'll go ahead and clone Caldera. Then I'll be able to create the virtual environment, activate it, then run Caldera for the first time. So I'll just copy git clone, go over here so you can see in my case there's a virtual environment here. I can actually exit this, excuse me, or just open a new shell, go into that downloads as directory where I love to have my recordings done. So paste this here, git cloning this. Once we have it cloned, we'll go in and we'll be able to create a virtual environment there, then activate the virtual environment as well. We should be good to go. Now you can run all these bunch of commands in a script. I can pack or pack this into a script, like a bash script that you can just trigger. It's going to run and get everything set up for you. But if you want me to do that, let me know in the description. I'll be glad to help you work in that. But for this recording, I'm not focused on that. If you want me to do that, just let me know. I'll be glad to do that for you in my spare time. Okay, I also know I have one or two people who had reached out to me, want clarity on a few things. I'm sorry I haven't been able to reply. It's been pretty busy. I'm trying to make my weekends available, but also it's really hard for me to get them available because I've got one or two other tasks that I'm engaged working on. So, but very soon I'll be able to make time, look into what you want me to do for you. Okay, so if we go in here, we'll see Caldera. We can go into Caldera. I'm just going to clear the screen. I will create my virtual environment and I'll activate it. So we should have a virtual environment ready. If I ls in here, you will see we've got the VNV. So great, we're good to go. What we need to do next at this point is to be able to install the dependencies. If I cut the content of requirements, you will see the bunch of dependencies. So we use pip to install those dependencies. Once we have them installed, then we want to be sure we've got Go. In my case, I already have Go, but since I'm in a virtual environment, I'm going to have to run this bad boy again, just so that I have it pointing to the current virtual environment that I'm in. I don't want to run into issues when I start running my Caldera deployment. It needs Go, so I'm going to get that done. Probably will prompt me for my password. Then if all works well, that should be good to go. Great. Now we can build Caldera for the first time. But before I build Caldera, I would love to make a few change, which would help us bypass a challenge which we run into later within the authentication space. So if I ls in here, you'd see there's a directory called plugin. I'm going to go into plugin. Just stay here and not go into plugin. It's in the Magma. Then there's a file called .env templates. I should even rename that file. Just give me a second. I will exit this. I'll just rename this file to .env. Again, that's the templates, but I can just rename it to .env so I don't have to stress myself back and forth. Okay, what happened there? Oh, my bad. Excuse me. Give me a second. Let's just go into a bit of distraction there. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's go into plugin Magma. It's a hidden file, so I should be able to see it. That's the file here. I can move .env template to .env. So I just okay, I just renamed it, and you will see if I nano. Don't ask me why I'm using nano, by the way. So I would see the Vite Caldera URL. Again, this is pointing to my local host. If you want this local, fine. If you've got an IP address, maybe you're deploying this on a cloud instance like an EC2 or maybe an Azure VM, you want to point to that IP address. But I would warn, do not have this done open publicly. So if you point to that IP address, be sure you've got like a security group on AWS define clearly the IP addresses you want to be able to access this. Do not forget, if you leave this open, anybody can connect to this. And worst case scenario, if you didn't change the default credentials, you just as might as well be be the victim of a hack. Whilst you're trying to emulate threats, you being a target. So I would recommend first, be sure if you're changing this IP address. In my case, I would use my local address again from my local router, so I know ain't nobody's going to be able to reach this. But in your case, if you're going to be making changes, be sure if you're using any public IP address that is publicly routable, do your due diligence. Don't come back telling me that I made your environment go hacked or breached. Be sure you change the default credentials. Be sure you define clearly who's going to be able to access this server that you're going to the application you're opening to the public. Okay, so I'm going to write this change. Enough with that rant. Then I have made that change. I'll go two step back. I think there is also a file in the conf called default.yaml. Again, I'm not going to be setting any like SSL encryption for my connection, but I would recommend you also do, if you've got certificate pin to this application, so you can actually access it via an encrypted channel or connection. I won't be doing that, so I would leave everything else as default. I will change a few things later, like this thing's pointing to 00000. That's fine. I would make some changes to that later, but I'll just go over to the default credentials and make a change to them. So you see there's an admin, and there's a red admin. There's also a blue admin. I will change the passwords. I'll just use something a bit different. Again, I'm showing you this. In your case, use something a bit more secure, or better still, if you can have a different integration managed authentication for you, be sure you want to do that. When I deploy this on cloud, you will see that we can actually define authentication way better than what we're doing locally. So I'll set like my classic keyboard password. My bad. Do not hate me for that. Anyways. Oh, that one is bad. Okay. Getting a bit of distraction. Okay. All right, so we've got these passwords changed. I would recommend you do the same in your case. As well, as you can see, the hosts should be updated as well. But again, for now, I'm not going into the settings. I just want to deploy this both locally and cloud. When we want to connect an agent, I will show you what it looks like. So I'm going to write this change. I'm going to exit this. Then at this point, we are good to go to build Caldera. So we can grab that command and build Caldera locally. So this is going to run a bunch of stuffs and got Caldera built for you. You're able to access it on the IP address which we had connected this thing to, which is this IP address. Okay, it's pulling stuff, packaging stuff, then also building stuff. Again, version 4 was a bit different, didn't have to go this route with version 5 because of the magma and the dashboard, which is unique. Again, you got to do a bunch of build. Then when you get this, I think you're good to go. I'm going to go to my browser. If I try to hit this on localhost, you see, oh, interestingly, I can still reach it, maybe because I'm local. I thought I did change the IP address, but I also try to hit this on this IP address. Let me see. As well, I can hit it. Okay, basically my default.com file locally, which again does my DNS resolution, is able to know that my local host is pinned to that IP address. I can make changes to that, so I can hit it on localhost. But if I log in here with the default credential, something like reg and admin, you see I'm not able to log in because I made a change, so we don't forget. So I'll use the password which we had set, then I can log in. Now you'd see that this is still pointing to all zeros. That's not good enough. You can change that on the fly here. You can pretty much update this. If you've got a domain for this, I would recommend you do that. But in my case, I'm using an IP address, so I can as well just point that to the IP address, point this to the IP address, and point all these other guys to the IP address. I'm not going to be doing that here, but again, you have to do all that just to be sure you're good to go. I can as well update this ones, push that change over, then also update this one. So I want my tunnel connection back to that specific IP. If that IP change, again, I'm using a home network and there's DNS going on there, DHCP, sorry, if my router goes off and chooses to give a different system that IP address, I'm toasted, I'm squashed. So be sure you have that due diligence done. If this is a static IP, even if it's private IP, have it static pinned to that particular application, easier. Or better still, you can just have the local host locally run. You should be fine as well. Okay, so I'll update all this. Now, quick overview of what it looks like. An agent, you can actually see that there's nothing at the moment. We can have an agent config done. I love to play around with the beacon timer. Again, the implant name, something a bit stouty like notepad.exe for Windows environment. For Mac, I would look for something that is Mac inclined. For Linux as well, the same. And then Splunk D. If I don't have Splunk, what is Splunk D doing there? A bootstrap ability, I also love to play with that and change that, as well as the deadman ability. Good stuff to play with. I'm not touching all that today's recording, so you can say I'm a bit too fast for you. All right, so to deploy an agent, we can just select that. We've got these different agents. Quick caveat, with the help of a colleague of mine called Ali, he did made a change to I'll give him the props for that. He actually did that change, made a change to the default Sandcats, which we would be using later. That change is actually, excuse me, here. So I will show you what the default Caldera Sandcat looks like, but later on, when we start getting hands-on dirty, we will change that. This one that has been updated by my colleague is built to bypass AV. Again, the goal is to be able to bypass AV if we're using the Sandcat agent. But the out of the box one, I've used this thing on prod environment. It gets flagged by Defender with a P2 or E5 or even the default Defender. So the goal is trying to see you can find a bypass. I've built a bunch of bypass around it using Python wrappers, but I'm not going to be showcasing most of that here for several reasons. Again, it's just to teach you how to do this stuff. You can go figure out what you want to do to bypass your Defender or whatever you've got security solution in your environment. Okay, so if you select this one, it gives you the option to select the platform. You can select Linux if you've got Linux platform. You can as well change that to Windows or even a Mac, Darwin. You can see it over there. Again, you play with this stuff on your own. When we get there, we'll deploy an agent. Today, we're not deploying agents. Abilities, another unique stuff. You will see there are a bunch of them mapped to the Mither. And again, it leverages the atomics. So when we get to the advanced stage, when I'll be showing you how to integrate Vector and Caldera, you will see that on Vector, when we're doing the planning, we don't have to include command specific. We can get into Caldera and read from the Caldera atomic integration, which has the command already built in, extract that command and use it to populate our newly created adversary. Fun stuff. If you hang around, you just might love that stuff. Okay, so I'll just pick one or two of them. For instance, you can select tactics, probably collection. I can pick maybe a technique, data obfuscation and steganography. They are nothing. Maybe OS credential dumping. Usually they've got a lot for that. I'll select the platform for Windows. Not sure what's going on there. Let's load that again. Let's select platform Windows. Let's go for collection. Great. Now I can open this up. You would see the ability ID. When we start doing the integration within both of them, we'll be leveraging the ID to read off the commands. Like I told you, the commands are already pre-built here, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel having atomics integrated. No, we can just leverage this. There's also the cleanup aspect as well. So we'll be using our planner to plan campaigns, ship that over via automation into Caldera, trigger that, leverage the commands we have built in, run the execution, export the reports. Pretty cool stuff, as well as have the cleanup run in the background. So you will see for each ability that is in Caldera, either mapped to a technique. Now an ability could be mapped to a bunch of techniques. In our case, for instance, let's say we're going for I'm just going to select all here. Let's say I'm going for a technique ID that is referenced in vector as something, let's see, discovery T10 48 or any of those ones, 48 47. Oh yeah, nice one. 1047. You can see that for Windows platform, there are a bunch of them. So it means for this technique, T1047, each of these could be considered a procedure. Again, we've got tactic, techniques, procedure. We know that in the pyramid of pain, threat actors have gone beyond just technique to technique, beyond technique to now procedure. One technique maps to multiple sub techniques, which could be procedures in this case. So you can see the automation which we'll be building will extract all the possible sub techniques or procedural commands depending on the different platform used, either we use WMI, C or WMI, or even other native binaries to execute that particular procedural command. Again, this gives you the leverage to mimic threat actors without just using one particular sub-technique or procedural command in your execution framework. Pretty cool stuff. I must give the props to Caldera as well for that. So we're just leveraging what they have in place to expand the capability to be able to meet our specific goals and needs in this case. Okay, so this is Caldera. Then you've got adversaries. There are a bunch of them already default in here, but the goal for us is we'll have vector, do the planning, export the plan from vector into the execution framework Caldera. Then we will be populating that with newly created adversaries here for target threat actor group. Stick around, you'd love this stuff, I must tell you that. But let me just show, for example, if I pick a worm, you'll see they already have a map of executions in terms of the test cases that you'll find in, I'll use them test cases, but basically it's called abilities here, find within the worm adversary or the profile worm adversary profile. So you can see all this, each of these, you can drill down into each of them to understand what exactly it's doing, what command is being run, pip install, there's Python shit going on there. You can as well understand if they've got multiple stages in the commands. Pretty cool stuff and neat stuff. How would be to play with this? Now you've also got the operations. Now you can, by default, you won't have any. You can actually create new operations. Our automation will be automatically creating operations from the adversary, which we've exported from vector into Caldera. But just to show you, I can create one a test. But it's always recommended to have an agent hooked up before you create one. So I'm not going to be going beyond just showing what it looks like creating one. I'll call it tests. I'll choose an adversary from this bunch of adversary lists. Let's just go with the one we saw initially. Then the fact source. Now the fact source, pretty much basic, is the default, but as you start running different operations, you'll be extracting fact from the machines you've actually gained access to. You can build a list of fact source where you can always reference to for subsequent threat emulation without having to reinvent that wheel. You can also do grouping if you've got agents in your group. The planner, I love to leverage atomics because, like I said, the automation we've built is fully leveraging atomics. There are a bunch of other planners. As we scale, we will see how we can actually use buckets. Pretty cool planner as well. Then you've got obfuscation. We do know that in recent, no matter how you try to do basis for whatever encoding, these AVs and EDR stuff will just flag you. So it makes sense to pretty much make the change on the payload before even actually getting that payload over to the machine you want to go over. You can also have it run autonomous. In our automation, we're running autonomous. So we don't require manual approval. Automation triggers, runs, and export the reports. 23 minutes, gotta go fast. Okay, so once you have all that set, you can start this. If I start this, you will see it's showing me running. Then I can then trigger that particular test case. But because I do not have any agent hooked up, it doesn't know where to run the operation on. So remember, you have to get an agent hooked up first. So I'm going to go back to that operation and just delete this operation. It's just for demo purpose. Now I'm done with showing you what it looks like. There are a bunch of other stuffs here cool you want to check out, like access, atomics, compass. I would leave these for you to play around with on your own. Mind you want to check the navigator, cool stuff as well. Sandcats. I did mention that we'll be making modifications to the default Sandcat agents. That will be on the next recording. I already have shown you the code which my colleague actually built. We'll be leveraging this to update the default one. But I will kill this application running, and just to show you where the default one sits in. If I go into plugin, in plugin there is a folder called Sandcats. In Sandcats there would be like a go-cats. In go-cats then we'll see the sandcat.go. This is the default one. So we'll be making change of this default one to the one my colleague had actually made changes to, which bypasses AV. Fun stuff. You want that stuff, let me know. I'll be glad to share with you on his approval though. Okay, so now we've seen how this stuff is deployed locally. I have killed that stuff so you can no more reach it locally. What we're going to do now is connect to another machine and quickly deploy this on Azure. Again, we'll be leveraging a project which was built by some guy. Cool stuff. Props to him. To deploy Caldera on Azure. Um, excuse me. Okay, we can't reach this thing anymore. I've actually pretty much killed it, so it's just going to be going in this loop after a while. It's going to stop. Okay. Yeah. Now we're going to switch over to another machine. This is the machine. On this machine, we'll be leveraging what someone had already worked on. I would leave every links to the GitHub project. This is the GitHub project. You see he's got Caldera here, and he's also got Purple Ops ASE. I have also tried this. Again, I would choose to use Vector because Vector has got a better extends coverage to integrations than what this is doing. But I will deploy this today also just to show you guys what it looks like. It's like an adversary emotional planner. You can use it to plan purple operations, but I still would stick to Vector because of the extensivity in what I can do with it. Okay, let's go to Caldera. So to deploy this, he made it easy. Once you've got your login on your Azure subscription, in my case, I've got login here. You can pretty much get a free account, but I have to warn you, you might run into a few challenges if you're using like free in terms of the number of resources you're allowed to use for this. If I may explain, if I put up like I've got this here for you guys. So if you look at this, you will see that for the free, again, not the best in terms of CPU memory. I tried for the free. I will tell you all the ones I've tried for. I tried for basic 1, basic 2, basic 3. That shit ain't gonna work for this. I tried for legacy S1, S2, S3. That shit ain't gonna work for this. But I was able to use Premium V. I also did Premium V3, P0, V3. Worked, but I couldn't deploy the app server because I ran out of resources. Then I used Premium V3, P1 V3. Worked perfectly. Worked perfectly. Again, to have this used, you would need like a pay as a go subscription. Your default free, which gives you 200 credits, will not work for this. I have to tell you the truth. Okay, but again, you can just hook up a card, get that stuff done, deploy the shit if you want to have this testing for a particular period of time, have it running. So you're done, you shut it down, you should be good to go. Anyways, so I'll deploy this on the repo. You would see there is a straight link without having to do any heavy lifting. It takes you to your Azure subscription. Then on your Azure subscription, you can actually get this bad boy deployed. So if I go here, you will see it's going to load up into my Azure subscription. Then I have these options. Now you can edit the templates. Like I was saying, if I go into the template, you would see the schema is pointing to the most recent, I think. But if I go down a bit, you will see here the SKU. This is where you'd run into problems if you don't have like a pay-as-you-go subscription. If you're just using the default free, you can try again. I think it's for East US. You can have it East US, but just once, and I think after that you probably will run into problems. But you can try this. Premium V3 is what I'm using. If you go back to the image I showed, that would be this Premium V3 P1 V3. You can try this one. It might work at first try, but at some point you run into problems. You can as well try S3. Might work at first trial, but you run out of resources as well. Okay, so I will leave this as it is. I'm not going to change this. I'll just discard this change. Then I don't have any resource group, so I'll create one. I'm just going to call this detection capability for reference purpose. Then I'm going to create this on the East US. Again, I could use any region because I have a pay-as-you-go subscription. If you're using default, let me give you a cheat. If you want to work with this for the first time, you're still using Premium V3, you can do that on East US. It will work for the first time, but your automation account, once you delete it, you can never have it back on again because it's going to tell you you've used it, you can't use it anymore. But you can try this on this. It's going to work for you for the first time. First time is a charm. Okay, so in my case, I'll use that default. Then I'll give it an environment. I'll just call this a dev environment. Okay, I will click on next. Always do the next. It's going to run a validation check if you've got enough resources to deploy this. Then once you're good to go, we can then verify. Then click on the create button. This will take, I think, 2 to 3 minutes or even 5 to completely deploy Caldera. Once it's deployed, I would recommend you set authentication. Again, this is not local anymore. This is cloud. It means you're going to got stuff exposed out there. Be sure you've got authentication done the right way, or else some bad guy is just going to get in and make a mess out of you. So we'll wait for this. My bad. Wait for this to finish. Then I'll continue with the video. Okay, so we can see our deployment is ready. Now we can go to our resource group to see what it looks like. So I'm going to click go to my resource group. We can actually pin this dashboard. I'm not doing that. So we can see the resources that have been deployed, all of them on East US. So we've got the Caldera App Service, which would be the application. We've got like the, excuse me, the backend server. We've got the automation accounts. Then we've got the log. Again, we'll be playing with this when we have the integration done properly to be able to detect what is going in Sentinel, because we'll be able to push this log workspace to Sentinel. Then from Sentinel, we can actually view the logs that are coming in from our Caldera, as well as any agent that we get hooked up, or VM to get hooked up. You can also see the storage account created. Then we can see the manage identities. Now, the first thing I would recommend doing for you, again, notes, you don't have to, but you need to do that. I'm stressing on the need to, because don't come crying to me that someone actually hacked you somehow, which I won't be able to explain to you. I'm just stressing on this because you can always come back and say, I watched this video and I actually got this and I got hacked. So once you load this app service, you would see like container image and a default domain. You can actually hit this thing on this default domain. It's going to take you straight to Caldera. By default, the default credential of reg admin logs into this thing. Pretty bad, because don't forget, this is actually public. This is no more local. This is public. Anybody with this URL can use a default credential and log into your Caldera instance. So I must warn, please, 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 and please fix that shit. Okay, so let's quickly fix a few shit first. We'll copy this domain. Oh, come on, just let me be this crazy, creepy, cringe stuff. Get the hell out of here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Caldera. Then we will go into settings. We will just change the app contacts from this to our domain. My bad. Again, by default, Azure gave us a domain that we can work with, so we can use that. But if you've got your own domain, I cannot paste. Seriously? What the hell? Copy. I'm almost out of time, by the way. I need to get on a work call. So I'm going to paste this here. Okay, so we can work with this domain. That's going to be like the app contact, the default app contact. You can update this. If I go back to the default page, you will see that this changed to that domain now. Then on the Azure end, I would recommend you search for authentication. Please, 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 and please fix this shit. Add an identity provider to provision authentication for this application. I recommend you strongly do this. Again, you can leverage any of these, but I will just use the Microsoft, which is default. Create the workforce configuration done so anybody within your tenant can actually access this if you want them to. We can even streamline access to specific people who belongs to a specific group. That would be your case to do. I'm not going to do that today because I have to jump on a work call. But again, follow the procedure. Add registration, create a new app registration, which is pointing to this application. Please note it's pointing to the application. Again, supported account type, current tenants for missing a tenant. Then additional checks, allow requests only from this application itself. Allow requests from any other entity. I do not want this from specific identity. Now I can specify the identities I want to. In my case, that would be this tenant user. If you're not in my tenant, I don't want you accessing my Caldera deployment. Okay, restrict access, require authentication. Very clear. Then also authenticated requests will send like a 302 redirect to the particular hosting which we've got. Once I'm done with all this, I can check the permissions. Currently, it's just user read. I think that should be fine. but if you want to, you can actually add permissions. Um, where you can actually go from the default user read to add in more permissions. We've got that authentication set out, and again, we can see it right here. Then as a provider, we can go back here and refresh on this. Then we should be able to maybe log out and log in as a user who is actually a part of that tenant. Okay, I would recommend you do the same. Please do not go using default admin, because some bad guy on the internet will gain access to your environment and you're doomed. You see, I can't even log in with default admin anymore. Let me try reg and admin. Okay, I can log in. Oh, I can still log in with admin. Okay, great. That should be changed definitely. Once you have the authentication connection done, you would have to log in with like your Azure credentials. Again, that's a bit more secure because Azure is managing authentication for this application. All right, that's all I have for today's recording. Subsequent recording will be deploying Vector, also on cloud. Then we'll be deploying the other solution which I showed you, which would be these purple apps, just for demo purpose to see what it looks like. Again, it's a good one. You can try it out on your own. You don't have to wait for me. Why I don't want to leverage this is because I've got better capability with Vector and I want to stick to Vector. But feel free to try it on your own. I'll leave the links to this project so you can play with it. That will be all I have for today. Quick caveat, like I mentioned, if you want me to wrap this, I'm going back here, for me to wrap this quick deployment workflow here in a like a bash script, let me know. I can do that, but I believe you can actually take this on your own. Okay guys, thanks for your time, your patience. I hope you love the content. I will see you in the next recording. Have a great day and bye.